Today I'd like to do a user-requested Kickstarter developer diary, and so on the forums I was asked to talk more about camera stuff, and I think I did a developer diary during Neverending Nightmares talking about our camera, but this was more about like what sort of desires in the future I have for our cameras, so it's definitely something I have been thinking about quite a bit. If you look at the Neverending Nightmares Kickstarter demo, basically it used to be that the player was always in the center, I mean unless it hits the end and then the camera just stops. The problem with that was, A, it didn't look very good. The player can, starts moving quickly and then the camera just races after him, or even races just with him, so that's not great. The other thing was when our character was big in Neverending Nightmares. If you look at a lot of games, especially games with any sort of action-y elements, like say imagine Contra, right? You look at Contra, the character's very tiny on screen, and that means you get a better view of the enemies, and so when you fight the enemies, basically we're in a situation where you couldn't see the enemy until he was like right on top of you. So we added in something where it would look ahead based on the direction you move. And then on top of that, so basically there was the camera target point, which would move forward if you're moving forward, move back if you're moving back. Then we added a critically damped spring, which I talked about before. I think I put on the blog some code for that, which creates really nice smooth movement and works really well for cameras. So then once we did all those things, the camera motion felt really fluid and natural. So we're pretty pleased with the camera. But there's definitely things that we've considered and may or may not do for various reasons. So one of the things that would be cool is dynamic zoom, and this is something we did not do in any scenes in Neverending Nightmares. It's something we could do, and the reason we did not do it is because of MIP mapping. So I'm not sure how much you know about 3D graphics, but basically the way it works is that there's basically, if you want to draw like a smaller object, you have what's called a MIP map, which is basically you have your picture, cut both dimensions in half, smaller picture, cut both dimensions in half, smaller picture, and so then you can blend between those two to get sort of smoother, smaller versions of things. Whereas if you just take the original version and resize it down, usually the filtering, I'm not sure exactly what hardware, what the graphics hardware does, but it doesn't create a very good effect visually. In my opinion, that's where usually you see sort of like big blocks and then it sort of shifts between them, or weird like color, I don't know. Anyway, I mean you can, I don't know if any games let you turn off MIP mapping. I don't think Minecraft has MIP mapping, so like if you look at things in the distance they look kind of weird. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe they added MIP mapping to Minecraft. I'm sure you can look up and find some video explaining MIP mapping. So anyway, we didn't want to have MIP maps for everything, because we were trying to keep our graphics memory down for the Ouya versions, and so we decided against that, and we did have MIP mapping for some things that needed it, but I forget what we did. There was on PC, because basically you could run at different resolutions, but anyway, basically we just didn't want to try it and worry about the MIP maps, but that's something that we might consider doing. Another thing that I really wanted is what's called like Dutch angles, where you rotate the camera. I think that could be cool and used to good effect. It's a little complicated. I think we would have to change all of our shaders to support it, so that would be a bit of a pain. I mean, normally it's very easy to do because basically you have matrices representing your camera, but I think we sort of optimize those out since we're doing most of the graphics in 2D. I mean, there's some things rendered in 3D. Since the important matrix is optimized out, that might be challenging. And I mean, there wasn't a situation in Neverending Nightmares where I felt like, oh man, I really wanted to use that and I didn't have it. I just thought, oh, this would be neat to use. And the other problem with that, and also sometimes a problem with, you know, zooming out, is that we create art for the screen. So most of our scenes, with the exception of like some staircases and when you're outside in the asylum, are 3 meters tall. So the camera sees 3 meters, and you know, from top to bottom of the screen. So if we did a rotate, or if we did these other things, we'd have to build out more art to show, which can be challenging, especially because to some extent we're not a side scroller. So I haven't played Ori and the Blind Forest, but if you look at screenshots, it looks like they basically, you know, have the character walking on a side view. It's a perfect side view. And doing a side view, like Metroid or whatever, is way easier than doing, like, in my mind, we're more like, you know, Final Fight or Golden Axe, where you can move in and out of the screen a little. And doing a straight side scroller is a bunch easier, because then you don't have to worry about perspective in terms of drawing your objects. You just draw one view of them, and that's it. Whereas basically we try and do, it's kind of, I kind of got the idea from Maniac Mansion, because if you look at Maniac Mansion, I mean, there's not much perspective, but the thing is that they do is, on one side there's a wall that's angled this way, and the other side there's a wall that's angled this way, and then you can draw the doors. So we can't do like a straight orthographic projection, because then you can't see the door on one of the walls. So we have like a, you know, actual perspective matrix, you know, with a vanishing point and everything. The problem is that basically, because it's 2D, you know, is that we can't be correct with the artwork, and you know, doing certain things create weird effects. And so I was playing a little bit of Valiant Hearts, I think it is, the World War I game, using the UB art framework. And I was like super impressed with their perspective for objects in the background, and how they, you know, moved correctly. And then I realized that they're actually being 3D rendered, because like there's a building in the background and the amount of wall you see changes based on the camera's view. So I mean, I think that's a lot harder to do, and doesn't quite fit with, you know, our artistic choices for the game, it definitely you know, means we can't do certain creative things with the camera. Like, it'd be neat to have some movement into the frame and then have the camera sort of move with you, but the problem is that everything, you know, looks really bad. You know, even moving into the frame looks a little weird, because, you know, the character is basically stomping and translating up, and we basically don't use perspective for the character, which is kind of weird, but then basically it would make some complications in terms of now all of a sudden we'd have to like if we had a bigger room and the door was further back, then we'd have to shrink it accordingly, and then at a certain point, right, like if you just want correct perspective, you really should be doing it in 3D, but we don't want to do it in 3D because we really like the look, the hand-drawn, handcrafted feel that it's tougher to do in 3D, and the stylization. So definitely creating a 2D game makes some things more complicated in terms of having a really creative camera motion. But I mean, there are some things we could do. We could do a screen shake. I think it's just normally we probably have to build out a little beyond the 3 meter height or whatever, so we can not just show blackness or whatever when the screen shakes. But I mean, those are solvable problems if we can think of an opportunity when we'd like to use them. Anyway, thanks for watching.